You think money solves everything? She said it loud enough for the neighbor across the street to pause mid-sprinkler adjustment. The keys to the brand-new Range Rover were still dangling in my outstretched hand, catching sunlight like a spotlight on my mistake. I blinked, unsure if I'd misheard. What? I asked, trying to laugh it off. It's your dream car, Mads. You've talked about this exact model for months. Madison crossed her arms and leaned back against the porch column, tilting her chin like she was about to deliver a TED Talk in condescension. What I talked about was wanting to feel seen, valued, not bought off. I lowered the keys slowly, my throat tightening. This isn't about buying you off. It's a gift, a thank you for everything you've done while I've been working like a madman this quarter. She snorted, actually snorted. Please. You think handing me a six-figure SUV makes up for you being emotionally unavailable for 3 years? I felt the words hit before I could brace for them. From the edge of our yard, Mrs. Klein peeked over her hedge with the same interest she gives to local raccoons. 2 joggers passed by, slowing just enough to catch a whiff of tension. Great. An audience. Can we not do this here? I murmured, stepping closer. Let's just go inside. But Madison's voice only got louder. Why? Embarrassed? You should be. Throwing money at your guilt, like some midlife crisis cliche. I clenched my jaw. Madison, I've worked myself into the ground trying to build this life for us. For you. I thought this was what? A bribe? She took a step toward me, her eyes glinting. You think a shiny grille and leather seats can fix years of silence? You don't even know who I am anymore. The keys clinked as I dropped them into my pocket, my hands shaking with a mix of anger and confusion. Then tell me what you want, because I'm trying here, Madison. I'm actually trying. She smiled then, sharp, pitying. What I want a man who doesn't need to prove his love with receipts. I was silent. She turned on her heel, leaving me standing in the driveway like a kid who brought home the wrong report card. The sun bore down, bright and blinding, turning sweat into humiliation. As she disappeared inside, I heard the neighbor's screen door creak shut. Yeah, the whole street got the show. That car was supposed to be a celebration, a gesture. Instead, it became a symbol, a line drawn in concrete under the California sun. I stood there alone for a moment, surrounded by the very life I'd built brick by brick. A life of precision and polish. My tech consulting firm had finally broken into 7 figures last quarter. I had employees, partners, investors. I had spreadsheets that could predict revenue 3 quarters out. But none of those charts warned me about this. About a woman who looked at a gift worth more than most people's salaries and saw it as an insult. About a marriage that had somehow calcified while I was too focused on providing. Madison had always been strong-willed, but lately, she'd turned mean with it. And for the first time, I didn't feel ashamed of standing there, keys still in hand. I felt angry, because this wasn't just about the car. This was about respect, and the growing suspicion that she didn't have any left for me. And if that was true, then maybe this driveway wasn't the start of her new car. Maybe it was the start of something else entirely. The next morning felt colder than it should have for Southern California. Not the weather, just the air between us. I stood at the kitchen island in a house that used to hum with warmth, sipping black coffee from a mug Madison had once bought me as a joke. It said, "World's okayest husband." Back then, we used to laugh about it. Now it felt like foreshadowing. Madison sat across from me, barefoot in one of her silk robes, legs crossed, scrolling her phone like the night before never happened. She didn't look up. Not once. Her latte sat untouched beside her, steam curling from the surface, slowly dying out, like something else in this house. The silence wasn't awkward. It was intentional. Weaponized. I watched her thumb flick rhythmically across her screen. Insta, probably. Maybe Pinterest. Or maybe she was texting one of those overly spiritual friends of hers who always seemed to pop up when she was in a mood to feel superior. The air was sterile. I could hear the ticking of the wall clock like it was shouting. Finally, I set my mug down gently, deliberately, and walked over to the entryway table. The brand new Range Rover key fob sat there, shining beneath the hallway light. I picked it up. My footsteps echoed on the hardwood. Her voice broke the quiet just as I reached for the door. "Where are you going?" Still not looking up. I turned the doorknob, kept my tone even. To take back what wasn't appreciated. That got her attention. She finally glanced up, eyes sharp. "You're what?" "I'm returning the car," I said simply. They said I had 72 hours. Madison barked a short, humorless laugh. You're kidding. Nope. You're actually going to return a gift just because your ego got bruised? I faced her fully now. It's not about ego. It's about not leaving expensive things lying around for someone who treats them, and me, like a nuisance. She set her phone down with exaggerated care, then stood. Wow. So now you're petty and dramatic. I folded my arms. Madison, last night you humiliated me in front of half the neighborhood. You mocked something I did out of thoughtfulness. I wasn't expecting fireworks, but I sure as hell didn't expect disgust. She stepped forward, eyes locked on mine, voice lower. Don't twist this, Ryan. That car wasn't about me. It was about you trying to feel better for not being present. You think throwing money at me makes up for emotional absence? Then why'd you tell your friends for weeks how excited you were about it? I asked. You showed me the color, the trim, the wheels. Was all of that fake? Her jaw twitched. Things change. No, I said quietly. People change. You've changed. We stood there for a beat, neither of us moving. Then she tilted her head. So what? You take the car back and suddenly you're the good guy? You think that makes you noble? I grabbed my keys. No, but it makes me not a fool. I turned and opened the door, letting the cool morning breeze rush in. As I stepped out, she called after me. Don't expect this to fix anything, Ryan. You're still the one who disappeared emotionally, and now you're throwing a tantrum because I didn't worship your wallet. I stopped on the porch, turned just slightly. You know, I said, voice low, it's funny. I used to think all our problems were just stress, that maybe we needed time, space, better communication. She folded her arms, waiting. But I'm starting to wonder if maybe the real issue is simpler than that. Her brow lifted. Which is, I looked her straight in the eyes. Maybe you just don't like me anymore. Her mouth parted like she wanted to fire something back, but nothing came. I shut the door behind me gently, not with a slam, just final enough. And as I walked to the car I'd spent hours customizing just for her, I didn't feel petty. I felt clear. Not good, not vindicated, but clear. And that clarity? It was a start. The living room that night was dim and quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't rest, but prowls. I sat in my usual corner of the sectional, laptop open, though I hadn't typed a word in 20 minutes. My mind drifted, looping through old memories that felt too distant to belong to this house anymore. The fireplace flickered low. Madison sat on the other end, legs tucked under her, scrolling through her phone again. Her wine glass was half empty, lipstick smudging the rim. She hadn't spoken to me since I brought the car back. Not when I came home, not during dinner, not even when I passed her the remote without a word. But silence, in this house, never stayed innocent for long. I heard the soft clink of her glass against the side table, then her voice, lazy and sharp, like a dagger wrapped in velvet. You really think the silent treatment makes you seem mysterious, don't you? I didn't look up. She went on. It's not strength, Ryan. It's pathetic. Still, I said nothing. She shifted, angling toward me, smile curling. You sit there like some monk, waiting for what? A gold star? Newsflash, sulking in the corner doesn't make you deep. It just makes you look small. I closed my laptop quietly and set it aside. You know what you remind me of? She added, resting her elbow on the couch back. One of those guys on the street holding a cardboard sign. But instead of spare change, you're begging for emotional validation. I looked at her then. Full, direct, cold. She waited for me to bite, to crack. Instead, I said calmly, don't mistake silence for weakness. That smile faltered, just slightly. She blinked. Excuse me. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, voice steady. You think you're winning something every time you land one of those little digs. Like this is a game. But I've been silent because I was trying to respect the fact that we're both angry. I gave you space. I gave us space. I stood, not raising my voice. But you took that as an invitation to keep swinging. She scoffed, rising from the couch. I'm not swinging. I'm reacting to being ignored. You don't get to ignore someone for months, I said, and then act outraged when the quiet finally gets returned. She stepped toward me. So this is who you are now? The brooding martyr? No, I said flatly. This is who I've always been. You just stopped listening long ago. We stood a few feet apart. The room felt tighter. Her voice lowered. You're not the only one who's hurting, Ryan. Then maybe try saying something real, I replied. Instead of throwing jabs, and calling it conversation. She opened her mouth, closed it again. A flicker of something crossed her face. Uncertainty, maybe, or doubt. It passed quickly. I miss when you used to try, she muttered. I miss when you didn't punish me for it. And with that, I turned and walked upstairs. No shouting, no storming, just done. Behind me, the living room fell back into that same dim silence. But now, it wasn't mine. It was hers. And for the first time in a long while, it didn't feel like she had the last word. 3 days passed. 3 long, quiet, calculating days. We circled each other through the house like strangers pretending to remember how to be married. The tension hadn't dissolved. It just settled, low and thick, like fog that refused to lift. But something inside me had shifted. I'd stopped waiting for Madison to meet me in the middle, and I wasn't interested in another duel. What I wanted now was clarity. That evening, I set the table for 2. No dinner, just a conversation. The overhead pendant light above the glass table reflected clean lines and cold truth. I waited with my hands folded until Madison finally walked in, heels clicking, glass of wine already in hand. She paused in the entryway, eyeing the setup. "What is this?" she asked, eyebrow raised. "Sit down," I said simply. "Please." She sighed, half amused, and took the seat across from me, legs crossed, posture sharp. I waited a beat, then spoke. "I want us to try counseling." She blinked, caught off guard for a half second. Then her lips curled into a smirk. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." Madison let out a laugh, one of those airy, incredulous ones that never touched her eyes. "You think dragging me to some therapist's office to cry about our childhoods is going to fix this?" I didn't flinch. "I think it's the only shot we've got left." She shook her head and sipped her wine like I'd offered her a reality show pitch. "God, Ryan, you're still doing it. Trying to fix things with a professional instead of just talking to your wife." "That's what I'm doing now." "No," she said, her tone sharp. "You're managing me, like an employee you don't know how to fire. This whole setup?" She gestured at the table. "It's a meeting. You even set chairs like we're negotiating a contract." "I'm not negotiating," I said. "I'm offering help. One last, honest shot." She leaned back, eyes narrowed, lips tight. "And if I say no?" I nodded once. "Then don't expect me to stay in this war zone." That wiped the smirk clean off her face. She stared at me, searching for some crack in my voice, some hesitation. But I gave her none. "You're threatening to leave me over therapy?" she asked, voice rising. "I'm telling you I won't keep pretending this is normal," I said. "I won't keep living in a house where contempt is the default setting. You say I'm absent. Maybe I have been. But you stopped treating me like a partner a long time ago. And now you think a counselor is going to make me, what? Like you more?" "No," I said. "But it might remind us how to talk like we used to. Before the sarcasm. Before we started keeping score." Her jaw flexed. "You're not the same man I married." I met her stare head on. "And you're not the woman I married. So maybe we owe it to ourselves to figure out what's left, or if there's anything left at all." Silence fell between us. She didn't move, didn't sip her wine. So I stood, pushed my chair in quietly, and started to walk. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Out." "For how long?" I paused at the front door. "As long as it takes for me to breathe." I didn't slam the door behind me, just closed it firmly, finally, like punctuation. Outside, the evening air wrapped around me cool and clear. The streetlights buzzed, cars passed, and somewhere down the road a kid laughed. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel heavy. I felt free, not because I had walked out, but because I had meant it. 3 days after I walked out, I boarded a plane without telling Madison where I was going. Didn't leave a note. Didn't text. I figured if she wanted to know, she'd check Instagram. By the time I landed on the island, the weight on my chest had already started to lift. The place was somewhere off the coast of Belize, a quiet resort built right along the shoreline, where hammocks swayed between palms and the water sparkled like glass. The kind of place people usually go for honeymoons or forgiveness. Me? I just needed air that didn't taste like tension. The first morning, I went diving with a guide named Theo, big guy with an easy laugh and a calm way of explaining danger without making it sound like danger. We suited up, zipped the wetsuits, and dropped into water so clear it felt like floating in sky. Down there, 20 feet below, the noise in my head finally quieted. The reef glowed in every color. Schools of fish darted past like choreographed confetti, and for once, I wasn't thinking about what Madison would say or how I'd defend myself when she rolled her eyes. I wasn't thinking at all. That night, I posted a picture. Me in board shorts, drink in hand, sunset melting behind me. The caption read, "No signal, no stress, no one asking if I'm emotionally available." It got more likes than I expected. Even her cousin commented with a palm tree emoji. I'll admit it, part of me enjoyed that. Knowing she'd see it, knowing she might wonder. But the second night, sitting alone on the balcony with nothing but waves and crickets in the distance, the feeling shifted. The silence here was different. It didn't press. It released. I looked around the room. Untouched bed, open suitcase, the second keycard still unused, and felt something strange rise in my chest. Not guilt, not sadness, just a clarity I hadn't had in years. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her. Not even at myself. I just didn't know why I'd stayed so long in something that made me feel so unseen. I kept telling myself that marriages had seasons, that we were just in a long winter. But winters end. And maybe ours had, and we just never opened the door to check. The next morning, I took a walk barefoot down the shoreline. The sand was cool, the tide rolling in gentle waves that lapped at my ankles like they had all the time in the world. I watched two older couples walking ahead of me, sunburnt, laughing, hands brushing together like the years hadn't worn them down, but softened them instead. One of them paused to snap a selfie. I smiled, and then I stopped walking. Because somewhere between their laughter and the way the light bent on the water, it finally hit me. I had been clinging to the past, to a version of my life that only existed because I was too proud to admit it had changed. I thought staying was strength. That endurance meant success. But all it had brought me was a quiet kind of loneliness. And maybe, just maybe, letting go wasn't failure. Maybe it was the beginning of something else. I pulled out my phone, snapped a photo of the empty beach ahead, and typed a caption. Sometimes peace looks like nothing at all. I hit post. And for the first time in months, I didn't check who saw it. I was halfway through my morning coffee, sitting under a thatched roof cabana, when my phone buzzed hard against the glass table. The screen flashed, Madison. I stared at it for a few seconds. Let it ring twice. Then I answered. Ryan, she said, sharp, brittle, a voice cracked wide open. Are you seriously doing this? I leaned back, glanced out at the ocean. Calm. Endless. Doing what? I asked quiet. She scoffed on the other end. You disappear. You vanish without a word and post pictures like you're some carefree bachelor. Are you trying to hurt me? Is that it? Her voice was trembling, not with sadness, but with something messier, fear disguised as fury. I didn't disappear, I replied. I left. You saw me walk out that door. And never came back, she snapped. You left me sitting in a house full of silence. You haven't answered a single message. You haven't even asked if I'm okay. I stood slowly, phone pressed to my ear, and started walking the length of the pier. The boards creaked beneath my feet, sun warming my back. Are you okay, Madison? I asked. Silence. I didn't think so, I said. Oh my God, she said, voice rising again. You're punishing me. No, I said calmly. I'm just done pretending. Pretending what? That this marriage isn't a one-sided performance. She went quiet for a beat. Then, her voice dipped, almost pleading. You're really throwing everything away over a car? I stopped walking. It wasn't the car, Madison, I said. It was what you did with the moment. You mocked me. In front of everyone. Not just the gift, but the way I give. Who I am. Her breath caught. I heard it. You said it was pathetic, I went on. That I was trying to buy your forgiveness with leather seats. But the truth is, I was trying to reach you. And you spat on it. I was angry, she muttered. I've been angry too, I said. But I never used it to humiliate you. There was a pause. Then, I didn't know you'd actually leave. I looked out across the ocean, squinting at the horizon. Neither did I admitted. But peace is a strange thing. Once you taste it, you can't go back to noise. She was quiet for a long moment. Then suddenly, you're abandoning me, she blurted. You're just walking away and acting like none of it matters. Do you even care? Do I even matter anymore? I exhaled slowly. You did this, I said softly. The moment you mocked me, you made a choice. And now I'm making one too. She said nothing. All I could hear was her breathing. Uneven, shallow, breaking. Then came the sob. Not performative. Not sharp. Just tired. Real. Small. I didn't think it would go this far, she whispered. I know, You're different now. So are you, I said. A seagull screeched overhead. I kept walking. I'm sorry, she said suddenly. But it didn't land. Because she didn't sound sorry. She sounded scared. And I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. I hope you find peace, I said, almost gently. I heard her inhale like she was about to say something else, but I ended the call. I slid the phone in my pocket and kept walking down the sunlit pier, each step lighter than the last. The water sparkled on both sides. The air smelled like salt and citrus. I felt no rage, no regret, just release. And somewhere in the quiet rhythm of my footsteps, I realized something. I wasn't walking away anymore. I was walking toward something new. The lobby smelled like polished stone and expensive paper. Everything was glass, chrome, and whispered conversations behind frosted doors. I checked in with the receptionist, nodded politely, and took a seat in a chair that probably cost more than my first car. This wasn't some strip mall attorney who'd hand me a templated packet and wish me luck. This was Elliot Graves. Top tier, reputation for being brutal in a suit, and, more importantly, discreet. He'd been recommended by a venture capitalist friend who went through a high-profile split last year and kept every dime. That was exactly what I needed now. Not revenge, not aggression, just clarity. Mr. Davis, a young assistant asked. You can come in now? I followed her down a hallway lined with abstract art, past shelves of legal tomes that looked like they'd never been opened but still intimidated the hell out of me. Elliot Graves stood to greet me. Mid-50s, gray suit cut like armor, silver cufflinks, and a calm handshake. He looked like a man who'd won more cases with silence than shouting. Ryan, he said with practiced warmth. Let's get you some peace. We sat across a dark wood desk. He opened a thin leather notebook and tapped a Mont Blanc pen against the page. Tell me where we stand. So I did. Not everything, just the essentials. I told him about the house, the joint account, the way Madison had started treating me like an ATM with a pulse. I explained how I'd quietly grown the consulting firm over the past 6 years, and how I wanted to make sure the business, and my team, wouldn't be collateral damage in a personal unraveling. I told him I wasn't out for blood. I just wanted a clean break. He listened. No interruptions, no fake sympathy. Just a steady stream of notes in neat, looping handwriting. First thing, he said after I finished, we protect the business. It's your sole proprietorship, correct? Converted to an LLC last year, I replied. Fully separated from our joint finances. Good, he nodded. Then we file a protective petition, outline your contributions versus hers. You never commingled business funds with household accounts? Not once. Excellent, he said, scribbling. We'll preemptively block any attempt to argue ownership interest. As for the house, joint deed? Yes. He leaned back. You want to keep it? No. It's a museum of arguments. A hint of a smile. That'll help. Clean exit. Less room for contest. He flipped the page and pulled up a screen on his monitor, glancing at the time. If she contests, he said, we'll negotiate firm but fair. If she doesn't, this can move quickly. You're not married to a litigator. She'll posture, but she doesn't want discovery. Trust me. I nodded slowly, absorbing it all. For the first time in months, I wasn't reacting. I was planning, strategizing, moving forward with purpose. Elliot handed me a folder, clean, sharp corners, everything tabbed and color-coded. This, he said, is how you keep your future from bleeding into your past. I thumbed through it. Financial disclosures, business protection clauses, an outline for asset division, even a suggested message if I wanted to break the news gently but formally. You don't have to use this one, he said, but it keeps you in control of the tone. No more late-night calls. No more emotional landmines. I didn't realize how much I needed that until he said it. I'll review it all tonight, I said, rising to shake his hand. He stood too. Good. And Ryan, don't let the calm fool you. If she tries to turn this into a storm, we'll walk her through it dry. That made me smile. For the first time, I walked out of an office with my back straight, my steps sure. I wasn't hoping anymore. I was acting, not as a man betrayed, but as a man reclaiming his direction. And the silence that followed me down that glass hallway, it wasn't empty anymore. It was mine. It started with perfume. The moment I stepped through the door, the scent hit me. Sweet, intentional, expensive. Madison was in the kitchen, wearing a red dress I hadn't seen in years, the one she used to call her special occasion weapon. Her hair was curled like it used to be when we first dated, soft waves framing her face. She looked beautiful, but it didn't land. Not after everything. She turned toward me like nothing was broken. "Hey, stranger," she said lightly, one hand resting on the counter, the other cradling a glass of wine. "You look rested." I didn't answer right away. Just set my keys down and walked to the sink to rinse my hands. "You're back early," she added, coming a few steps closer. "I wrapped things up faster than expected," I said. She leaned against the island, smiling softly. "Well, I was thinking maybe we could have dinner. Just us. No arguing. No pressure." I glanced over at the table. Candles, wine, 2 plates. She'd even cooked, something with garlic and rosemary, the smell trying its best to stir nostalgia. It didn't. "I'm not hungry," I said. Her smile faltered, just a fraction. "Come on, Ryan. I made your favorite." I shook my head. "Madison, what are we doing?" She blinked. "We're talking." "No. You're pretending nothing happened. That this is normal. It's not." She stepped closer again, voice low, almost sultry. "I just thought, maybe we could find our way back. That trip of yours must have cleared your head." "It did," I said, which is exactly why I won't play along. Her hand brushed my arm. I didn't move. When I didn't respond, she stepped back like she'd been burned. The shift in her face was instant, sweet to sharp, soft to steel. "I guess you found someone else then," she snapped. "That's it, right? Some resort bartender with tan lines and fake nails?" I turned, slowly. "This isn't about anyone else." "Oh, spare me," she said, arms crossed. "You vanish, ignore me for days, come back looking like some magazine version of yourself, and now suddenly I'm not even worth dinner?" I stayed quiet. She laughed bitterly. "Unbelievable. I guess it really is true. Men always bounce back faster. Trade in the old model and never look back." I stared at her calmly. "You're not an old model, Madison. You're just someone who thought I'd never stop chasing you." She opened her mouth, but didn't speak. Her eyes blinked faster, lips twitching between anger and uncertainty. I took a step forward, not out of aggression, but to be clear. "You don't get to tear me down for months and then seduce me when the consequences show up." Her voice cracked. "I wasn't trying to seduce you." "Then what were you trying to do?" I asked. She didn't answer. And maybe that silence was the most honest thing she'd said all night. I walked past her, heading upstairs. "This doesn't work anymore," I said quietly. "Whatever this used to be, it's not here now." Behind me, I heard the soft clink of her wine glass hitting the counter. But no footsteps followed. Just quiet. The kind that finally felt like distance instead of tension. The rooftop shimmered in string lights and clinking glasses. Someone was spinning vinyl near the edge, and the soft groove of old-school soul floated through the autumn air. Laughter echoed from small clusters of guests wrapped in scarves and overpriced cardigans. I hadn't planned to stay long. Just a quick drop-in for Grant's birthday. He was a mutual friend from college, the type who'd take it personally if you RSVP'd and didn't show. I stood by the bar with a bourbon in hand, watching the skyline flicker behind a blur of chatter. That's when I saw her. Madison, arriving fashionably late in black heels and red lipstick like it was still 2016. Her eyes skimmed the crowd, and of course, they found me in seconds. She made her way over, a glass of something clear in her hand, and that forced smile already forming. "Ryan," she said, pausing next to me like we were casual acquaintances instead of a soon-to-be divorced couple. "Didn't think you'd be here." I could say the same, I replied, taking a sip. She chuckled politely, scanning the group. "Funny how everyone's still pretending to like each other after all these years." "They're not pretending," I said. "They just know when to stop performing." That got a slight eyebrow raise. But before she could bite back, someone else joined the circle. Lily, her sister. She wore a navy jumpsuit, hair pinned up in a way that looked effortlessly cool, not forced. She hugged Grant, then noticed me, and smiled. It wasn't flirty. It wasn't forced. It was kind. "Hey, stranger," Lily said. "Still allergic to small talk?" "Only when it's not with you." She laughed, genuine, like she hadn't rehearsed it. "Well, I'm honored." Madison watched all this with a tight-lipped expression, sipping too fast from her glass. Minutes passed. Conversations shifted. Then, as the group grew louder near the snack table, someone told a joke I didn't catch, and Madison, clearly emboldened by her second drink, raised her voice. "I still say I should have gone with my ex," she said, loud enough to cut the music's edge. Better abs, less emotional drama. Laughter stuttered out from the circle. A few people gave polite chuckles. Most looked away. I didn't blink. I just smiled, smooth as glass. Well, I said, setting my glass down, I regret choosing you over your sister. Madison's jaw froze. There was a pause, just long enough for the crowd to stiffen. Then, Lily snorted. We can fix that. Somehow that made the moment even more surreal. I turned to her, half grinning. You're way more grounded. Want to grab lunch next week? Lily gave a little shrug, playful but not shy. You buying? Always. Madison slammed her glass on the table. You're unbelievable, she snapped. Really? Flirting with my sister at a party like this? No, I said calmly. Just talking to someone who actually listens. She scoffed. You think this makes you look cool? You look pathetic. Funny, Lily murmured under her breath. I was going to say the same to you. That pushed Madison over the edge. Her eyes flared, but she didn't say another word, just turned, grabbed her coat off the back of a chair, and stormed toward the exit, heels clacking like gunshots across the concrete. The group stayed quiet for a few seconds too long. Then the music picked back up. Conversations resumed. Lily looked over at me, cheeks slightly flushed. Was that too much? I shook my head. No, that was exactly enough. We clinked glasses and turned back toward the skyline. And for the first time in forever, I wasn't the one standing alone after a scene. I was the one smiling. The courtroom was colder than I expected, bright, sterile, humming with quiet tension. Madison sat across the aisle, dressed in a soft beige blazer that screamed innocent, her hair pulled back like a schoolteacher on parent-teacher night. Tissues already clutched in her hand before anything even began. Her attorney leaned in, whispering something, and she nodded solemnly, like a woman freshly wounded, not a woman who'd spent the last 6 months wounding. My lawyer, Elliot Graves, didn't blink. He just clicked his pen once, opened the leather folio on the desk, and nodded when the judge entered. Case number 3146, Davis versus Davis, the bailiff announced. The judge, an older woman with steel gray eyes and no appetite for theatrics, gestured for Madison's attorney to begin. And he did, with the full performance. He painted her as a woman left behind. Abandoned. Misunderstood. He spoke about emotional neglect, loneliness, and a breakdown in communication. And right on cue, Madison dabbed her eyes, sniffled, and stared at the floor like it had betrayed her too. When he was finished, the judge looked to Elliot. Mr. Graves? Elliot stood slowly, adjusted his cuffs, and walked forward with the quiet calm of a man holding aces. Your Honor, he began, my client has remained silent long enough. What Mrs. Davis has presented today is not a breakdown in communication. It is strategy masquerading as sorrow. He clicked the remote in his hand. A monitor lit up beside the bench. This, he continued, is a bank transfer made 2 weeks before Mr. Davis left the marital home. $10,000 withdrawn from the joint account and transferred into a private savings account opened solely in Madison Davis's name. Madison shifted in her seat. Her attorney didn't. Click. This, Elliot said, is a series of text messages between Mrs. Davis and her friend Natalie, screenshots we obtained through legal subpoena. He read them aloud, each word slicing through the silence. Natalie, if he doesn't take the hint soon, what's your plan? Madison, then I push. Take my half and start fresh. Natalie, you're cold LOL. Madison, I'm just done pretending to care. A gasp rose from the back of the courtroom. Madison's face flushed red, her lips parting slightly. Her attorney stood. Objection, Your Honor. This is a violation of privacy. Overruled, the judge said, voice flat. Elliot stepped closer to the bench. We also have evidence that Mrs. Davis declined all mediation efforts, mocked counseling, and continued to access joint funds after Mr. Davis had formally separated. He paused. This was not a woman abandoned. This was a woman who made a choice. A calculated one. Madison shot to her feet. It wasn't like that. The judge raised a brow. Mrs. Davis, sit down. No, she snapped, eyes wide and voice shaking. I just wanted half and someone new, okay? I was tired of him. Tired of feeling like I married a spreadsheet. Gasps again. Even her own attorney flinched. The judge stared at her a long moment. Thank you for your honesty. 10 minutes later, the ruling came down like a door slamming shut. Primary ownership of the business, Ryan Davis. No alimony awarded. Asset division, 70-30 in Ryan's favor due to financial misconduct. And as the gavel dropped, Madison didn't cry. She didn't say a word. She just sat there, still as glass, while her carefully crafted mask finally cracked. And all that was left behind it was silence. Not power, not poise, just a woman who gambled everything on control and lost. It was a quiet cafe on a Sunday morning, the kind with soft music, chipped mugs, and sun slanting through the windows just right. Lily sat across from me, stirring cream into her coffee, wearing a faded denim jacket and a kind of ease that didn't demand anything. I just wanted to say thank you, I said, for being real, during all of it. She looked up, met my eyes, and smiled. Maybe you just needed someone who listens. I laughed softly. That's rarer than I thought. She reached across the table, fingers brushing mine. Not dramatic, not performative. Just connection. Outside, the city moved on. Inside, something quiet and warm settled between us. No pressure, no plans, just a beginning. And for the first time in a long time, that was more than enough. And that was the end of my story. Madison once said she just wanted half and someone new. But was that honesty or cruelty? Did she do the right thing? Or have you ever seen someone try to manipulate a situation like that and fail? Let me know in the comments. And if this hit you somewhere real, don't forget to like and subscribe. I've got more stories to tell.